Hi, Coach Shawn here. So I'm starting a new series, and it's called The Fallout of the Divorce from the Narcissist. If you've already divorced a narcissist, this is for you. And if you're thinking about divorcing a narcissist, this is for you. I thought about this a lot. I see a lot of comments that say, I wish I had never filed for divorce. I remember feeling that way because it is such a fallout. And you didn't realize how much of a fallout it was going to be, and that it was never going to end. It was going to go into parental alienation, it was going to go into the grandkids, it was going to go into every aspect of your family life. The abuse wasn't going to end after you filed for divorce, it was going to continue and continue and continue. And for that, I understand completely, and I'm extremely sorry. But there's a couple of things I'd like for you to think about. I want you to think for a minute about what it was like when you were still in that marriage. What it was like to get up in the morning and have that sick feeling in your stomach. What it was like to not want to do anything. What it was like to always be depressed. Or if you were self-medicating. Or whatever it was you were doing to get through your day and get through your life because you didn't have a partner. You didn't have somebody that ever had your back. And that person was never going to have your back. Your spouse was always going to triangulate. It was always going to be like this. It was never going to be like this. I want you to think about that gut punch if you found out that they had been cheating on you. I want you to think about how many times they lied to your face. I want you to think about how many times you tried to have an adult discussion with them to no end and it went nowhere. Every time you tried to talk to them, they turned it into an argument or said, I'm not going to argue with you. And you wanted to have a discussion. You're married. You're a married couple. You were supposed to have discussions, and they would never do that. I want you to think about what it was like to live in that house for a minute. I want you to think about the fact that they were already alienating your kids. Many of us, when I talk to a lot of my clients, we all kind of chalked it up to being a teenager, the complete disrespect that we got. Well, it wasn't being a teenager. It was the fact that they'd been talking about us behind our back for years, and we didn't even know it. When you were in the marriage, it was hell. And leaving the marriage was hell also. Now, with that being said, I am not a proponent of divorce. It does depend on the marriage. And it depends on how severe your situation is. It depends on how bad the narcissist is that you're with. If you can tolerate being married to him or her, think about the fallout financially. Think about the fallout to the children. Think about the fallout to the grandchildren. So I would really consider weighing the positives and the negatives. But if you are falling apart, if you can't function on a daily basis, if you are physically threatened, like I was, like many of us were, you start pushing and shoving and wishing they could beat you if they lived in a different country. That was just a matter of time before he hit me. If your kids are already showing signs that they don't want to be around you, guess what? Eventually, they'll probably end up alienating you both. I see that too. Because they don't want to be around the narcissist, and they've already been turned against you, so they just alienate you both. If you're in a situation where you can't function anymore, you need to leave. You need to leave. But if you're in a situation where there is narcissistic tendencies, everybody has some sort of narcissism. It just depends on how high up you tick on the scale. It's healthy to have some. If you don't care about yourself at all. But if you can make it work, I suggest trying to make it work, but not at the expense of yourself, because if you just keep losing yourself, you're going to lose everything anyway. At least if you leave, as hard as that fallout is, you have a chance. You have a chance at life. You've got a chance at being happy again. I have a lot of people who leave comments that say, I got remarried again. I have clients that got remarried again and have a whole nother family. I'm not saying your family is ever going to be replaced. Please do not get me wrong here. But at least you have some sort of a chance at happiness that you're not going to have in that marriage, not ever, not with that person. That person is never going to be your partner. And that person is always going to talk behind your back. And with the smear campaign after the divorce, that smear campaign was going on while you were still married. It was going on for years before you realized it. I know how hard it is. I see comments all the time that say, again, I wish I had never filed for divorce. I had no idea it was going to be like this. Yeah, but you don't know what that marriage was going to be like today. I mean, you filed for a reason. You filed because you were unhappy. You filed because you knew you couldn't make it work. If you were still in that situation, it wasn't going to get better. It was going to get worse. And again, you don't know what was going to happen with your relationship with your children. Just because you were still married to this person doesn't mean that you weren't going to have a healthy relationship, because you didn't have a healthy relationship with them when you were still married to them. You weren't healthy when you were still married to them. And now, at least you can try to be healthy. You can try to be happy. And you know what? If you're alienated from your kids right now, which is a huge part of the fallout, and that was my whole last series, and it is what it is. At least if they come back, if they work on themselves, and if they truly want to have a relationship with you, and if they really have understood what you've been through, at least they come back to find a healthy parent, because you weren't going to be healthy in that marriage. You were never going to be who you probably are today. You're probably maybe not financially better off. A lot of people, it takes a big hit. That's again, the narcissist doesn't think about any of those things. They don't think about the kids and hurting the children, because it's not normal not to have a relationship with both parents. They don't care. It's only about winning. It's about whatever they want. It's about control. They don't think about the long-term repercussions of that financial fallout or grandma, grandpa. It doesn't occur to them. The same way it didn't occur to them when they were cheating and manipulating and lying and turning the kids against you and doing the smear campaign. It didn't occur to them. I'm fucking up my life. And if you don't like my language, I'm sorry. Don't be on my channel. I love the F-bomb. But if you really stop and think about it, you were the one thinking about all those things. You were the one thinking about the fallout. You were the one going, really? You're really going to blow all this up? I know I was. I thought, I cannot believe that this person is not thinking about the long-term repercussions of this. He's too busy thinking about the next lay, too busy thinking about his ego, too busy thinking about winning. That's what they do. They don't think long term. They're not wired like that. I remember him even saying, I never look in the rearview mirror. I only look forward. I thought, you dumbass. How do we learn? We learn by looking back. You better look back. You don't have to stay back here, but you better look back. You know the saying, if you don't study history, you're bound to repeat it. That's why they keep getting in the same scenario. Financial debt, wrong person, losing jobs, whatever it is, they keep doing the same thing over and over again because they don't ever look back. They only live in the moment. They only live for right now. But you don't do that. And so if you're thinking about getting divorced, I want you to weigh the pros and the cons. Not that you haven't already, but really seriously sit down and do it before you get to a point where you're too broken to do it. You don't want to be in a situation where you're just like, I got to get out, and you don't even have time to plan or think. Now, sometimes that's what you have to do. Sometimes it's survival. Sometimes if you do stop and plan and think, you might not do it. I know I just did it. I just filed. And then when I started seeing all the repercussions of what was going to happen, I thought, surely it's going to click for him. But it didn't. It didn't. It never did. And that was, I did the right thing. You did the right thing. Really think about what it would be like to still be in that marriage. You'd be miserable, and you would be that much older. And that person, they get worse with age. Narcissists get worse with age. But if you're with somebody that you can live with their narcissistic tendencies, they're not physically abusive, they don't cheat, they might be selfish, they might talk behind your back, they might not have your back. But if you can live with those things, I'm telling you, divorce is not the answer unless it's absolutely what you need to do to survive. It is just not the answer. It is not something that you want to go through unless you absolutely have to. No one wants to blow it up, especially if you've been married for decades and you have children and you've built a life together. It's stupid. You should do everything you can to protect it. Again, unless you're with a partner who you just can't be with anymore. You just can't do it. If you're laying in bed at night looking over at that person and you feel sick and you're thinking, who is this person? And every day you're just doing everything you can to get through the day, you probably have your answer. If you're not sure, if you want guidance, if you are sure and you need to put together a plan, you need a financial plan. And if you've got younger children, you need to think about a family court plan. If you're a single mom, if you're going to be a single mom and you've been a stay-at-home mom, you're going to need to really think about how you're going to provide for yourself. None of this is easy. It's scary. And it's unfortunate that you're with someone who doesn't have your back, who didn't honor their vows. But I want you to know you're not alone. And if you're facing any of those situations, I'm here to help. I offer one-on-one sessions. You can see my link in my bio. My heart goes out to you.